And another thing that comes right from where I live now in Minneapolis, we have this thing called the Neighborhood Revitalization Program that's been around for about 20 years, and it's funded by some tax dollars we generate in Minneapolis through tax increment financing. But I think that we could use that, and what it is this money then goes to neighborhood boards, and they can kind of spend it the way they want to with their discretion. And I think we should think about that, maybe a different source of funding, but kind of a Main Street revitalization program where the state isn't just picking winners and losers, but actually providing a small bit of money to communities all across the state, that they would have the discretion about how do we need to spend this money to revitalize this small town, and empowering people a lot more in the decision making that goes on. And I don't think that we've been having that with our economic development from the state as much as we should have. The last thing that's pretty clear to me as I've traveled across the state is the clear interrelationship between the health of the agricultural economy and the small town economy. And so making sure that we have a strong farm economy that interrelates with the towns that serve the farms in the area is going to be really important. And kind of as those rise, the towns rise. As those falls, the towns fall. That's significant. And one other thing, and I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but I also think that the healthcare and having access to real healthcare in small towns is important and a huge challenge, because there's not always professionals there that are going to be there full time, right? And one thing that I think we should expand across the state that I've seen in a few places are these things called healthcare malls, where the town kind of has a storefront that's available to professionals that can come in once or twice a week and serve the community right in the community, dentists, chiropractors, physical therapists, as well as doctors. But they don't have to worry about the huge overhead of actually having to pay the rent and the utilities and everything. And it's very much of a win-win situation. So there's a lot of things that I think we can do, but at the end of the day, I think the most important lesson that I've learned is that giving as much power and as much decision-making authority to the small town and providing the resources to folks in these towns is the best way we can proceed, instead of just thinking in Minneapolis and St. Paul we know best.
I think, talking about the 76% that have 5 or less employees, those would be the ones, and 76% of the employers that are within Fillmore County. Now, obviously, with Rochester, Winona, Decorah, we have a lot of people who commute outside of the area to work. Some even go to La Crosse. They cross state lines. Decorah, of course, is in Iowa. And with that said, how would you help a business within Fillmore County specifically achieve providing health care for all of their employees? Would that be a relationship with the employer, offering incentive to provide that, or are you talking at a state level? It would be a group, a group plan, kind of the state acting as a third-party administrator to offer that,
right,
so the employer wouldn't be involved.
Right. Well, and I think that that's a couple of things. I mean, one is we need to get in this state an affordability standard for everybody, so that even if the small business can offer some of it and the individual can pick up some of it, the state will step in and help out. I think perhaps expanding Minnesota Care as an option that small employers can buy into is something that is worth exploring and may make sense as an alternative, especially if we can do two things. One is to pay up doctors a little bit more in our state programs, and secondly, to make sure that the benefits that are being offered are sufficient, and particularly to support the hospitals in the area. And then I think that there's some things that we can do with tax incentives to allow small businesses to more effectively provide health care to their employees. And the thing that the state can do in addition to that is to help small employers keep their employees healthy. I mean, we know that the General Mills and the 3Ms actually keep their health care costs down primarily because they do wellness programs and they do a lot of stuff to keep people healthy. Things that small businesses can't afford to do as part of their program, but we can do through public health and through preventative outreach, try to provide that type of service so that small businesses don't have to pay for it, but they're available to their employees.
Now, one thing that, when I was searching, Googling, I found that it looks like over a 7-week period you generated about $115,000. That's what it said for your campaign in 2008. Which it appeared to be, based on the blog, there was quite a bit of activity going on with your campaign, you know, funding-wise.
Right.
And so you've been campaigning for about a year now.
Just about, yeah.
Okay. You know, looking at, you must be one of the first ones out there, kind of, you know, making an effort to prepare for the 2010 election. You know, how's the process been going?
Well, it's been great. I mean, we've been working very hard at the fundraising, and the reality is, whether for good or for bad, that's an important part of this race and credibility. But more importantly than that, we've been getting out all over the state, like I said, and talking to people. And I think we've been to 73 or 74 counties so far, meeting with Minnesotans, getting to know what they're talking about. People are really responding well to our message, you know, about getting back to Minnesota's tradition or value of really thinking big and creatively about how we solve our problems together. And people seem to like that. And so I'm really been happy with the process. A couple of weeks ago, Politics in Minnesota named us the hot campaign in the race, and it really feels that way as I travel around the state. So the campaign is going well. We got a good staff in place, and we're going to just continue on a trajectory. I mean, when I filed the papers, you know, back last November, nobody, I don't think, well, not nobody, but very few people in the state knew who I was or what the campaign was about. And I don't think that that's true anymore. And that makes me very happy. We're going to continue to work on that.
Okay. Probably one final question that I have for you is, being that you started in 2002 at the state legislature level, you know, some might say, well, you know, he's not been involved, maybe he's got a few more years to get under his belt before he's prepared for the position of governor. You know, what would be your response to that, to, you know, let people know that you are prepared?
Well, a couple things. I think in the 7 years that I've been there, I've gotten a tremendous amount done, and I've taken on really some of the toughest areas, healthcare, pensions, and retirement security, that are in our state government. And so I think I have a very deep understanding of state government. I have a reputation for really understanding those things. The second thing is, I don't think Minnesotans are looking for a career politician to run in this race. I think they're looking for new ideas, they're looking for fresh energy and a fresh face. I think it's really an advantage to have both the experience that I do have, 7 years of experience, which is actually quite a bit to understand the interactions of state government, but also coming at it from a perspective of, it's not all about what happens within the four walls of the state capitol. There's a bigger world out there. Most Minnesotans actually don't care about exactly what goes on within the four walls of the state capitol. They just want us to get the job done and get it done right. And that's the attitude I try to bring to my legislating. And I think the fact that I am new to the scene, I haven't been around for 20 or 30 years as some of my opponents have been, I think is actually a good thing.
Actually, there's another question. You mentioned, you know, that the state of Minnesota has lost some of its spirit and tradition. The people have kind of, you know, you've gotten that impression. What state would you say right now really is in a good position compared to Minnesota in, you know, making that type of a comparison that, you know, would be something to, you know, maybe you know, this particular state really has it figured out. Maybe we want to.
Well, I think a couple of things. I don't think I can identify any particular state across the board that is like that. I think, for instance, Virginia has done some really good things around developing their economy, and they have a state that in many ways looks like Minnesota because it has the urban piece of it right around Washington, D.C., but vast rural areas as well, and trying to bridge that gap between how they're going to fit in this global economy. I actually think that they've done some pretty good work. I think North Carolina on the early childhood stuff is clearly leading the way and something that we need to look for. But at the end of the day, I think Minnesota is unique in many ways in having this spirit of exceptionalism among the states, at least in the travels that I've done across the United States. And I think it actually is one of those things that has made this place special. I think part of it is who immigrated here, you know, who founded this state and the spirit that they brought with them. And I think it's a shame if we were to lose that.
Okay.